Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So, I wanted to make a Twilight video for this week and I thought to myself, what is the actual biggest video I can make involving this series? What would really get my viewers talking? So it hit me. Let's take every single vampire in the Twilight series and rank them from weakest to strongest. In case you're unaware, there's 56 vampires in total, something I had to double check because I couldn't actually believe it. So let's not hang around guys, let's rank all 56 vampires from Twilight, weakest to strongest. Number 56. Vasili. The name might not be too familiar with some of you, but Vasili does play a role in the Twilight story. He was an immortal child created by Sasha, the adoptive mother of Irina, Tanya and Cade. Sasha created the boy during the plague outbreak, most likely to save him from such a horrific death should he become infected. She kept him a secret from her 3 daughters and did so very well. Vasili was but 3 years old when he was turned into an immortal child, and his behaviour soon became uncontrollable. As awful as it was that he was condemned to the body of a child for all eternity, his lack of understanding of human nature resulted in his bloodlust becoming completely irrational and dangerous. When he escaped from Sasha's supervision, he ended up slaughtering an entire village, something that the Volturi became aware of very quickly. He was executed due to the threat he caused, along with Sasha for creating him. Number 55. Bree Tanner. I always felt really sorry for Bree. She was turned into a vampire against her will, didn't understand what she was, nor had she any idea what to do with her power. She was really terrified and didn't want to fight in Riley and Victoria's army. After Victoria and Riley were both killed along with the remaining vampires from the ranks, Bree found herself in the wrong place and unfortunately at the wrong time. She was made an example of the Volturi's unwillingness to give second chances when Felix executed her, despite the Cullens willing to take her in and show her the ropes. Number 54. Charlotte. Charlotte was originally created in the south as part of Maria's newborn vampire army. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, just like Bree, when Maria went looking for humans to turn to protect her territories. She was not intended to be left alive. Jasper summoned her under false pretenses in order to kill her. Peter, another newborn, warned her of the impending danger and she escaped. Number 53. Rosalie Hale. Rosalie Hale is pretty high on this list, mostly due to the fact that she resents the fact she's a vampire, doesn't have a supernatural gift, and overall is a pretty average vampire. She is stunningly beautiful, but has no interest in fighting or displaying what strength she has, in addition to having no interest in ever supporting the creation of other vampires. Her sole comfort in her life of eternity is her husband Emmett, who she sees as her soulmate. Number 52. Peter. Peter was originally created during the Southern Wars as part of Maria's army. The army's second in command, Jasper, found a kindred spirit in Peter and was impressed with his combat abilities and convinced Maria that Peter would be worth keeping. Number 51. Sulpicia. Sulpicia is a member of the Volturi and the wife of Arrow. Sulpicia was a young orphan girl chosen and created by Arrow as his mate, as she was what Arrow had in mind when considering a mate. After successfully courting her, she agreed to be transformed into a vampire and become Arrow's wife. However, after the death of Marcus's wife Didi May, she was heavily guarded alongside Athena Dora in the Volterra Tower. They never leave unless it is under extremely important circumstances. She travelled the Forks with Arrow and the Volturi during the confrontation with the Cullens, but had no parts to play in it. Her age alone makes her quite powerful. Number 50. Irina. Irina was the third vampire added to the Denali coven after Tanya and Cade. She was responsible for the myth or the legend of the succubus, a woman who lured men to them in order to feed before killing them. In reality, Irina, along with her sisters, couldn't settle with any of the men they chose, which resulted in their deaths in order to protect their identity. The guilt of killing so many men caused a continuous buildup of guilt over the life they were leading, especially as some of the men became attached to them emotionally. She became a vegetarian afterward and put those days behind her. Number 49. Sasha. Sasha was the founder of the Denali Coven, or what will become the Denali Coven. She created Kate, Irina and Tanya, adopting them as her own children. Sasha was very loving and kind to her daughters, but being an immortal, longed for a child much younger. She decided to create an immortal child, freezing an infant in time along with her own eternity. Kinda messed up a little when you think of it. Her actions were discovered by the Volturi, as I said, when speaking about Vasily. Both she and her immortal son were executed. Number 48. Tia. Tia is a member of the Egyptian coven and is the mate of Benjamin. She's described as a quiet woman with great insight in what she says. She has a strong belief in right and wrong. She is also very intelligent, able to see past Amun's fake gentleness towards Benjamin, but doesn't say anything about it since they share the common goal to keep Benjamin safe. She has no supernatural gift, but is a valued member of the coven. Number 47. Lucy. Lucy was a member of the Mexican coven before she and Nettie plotted against the leader Maria and was executed for their betrayal. She helped Maria build her newborn army and wanted vengeance for a fallen mate, along with reclaiming the lost territory. She was a very skilled fighter and supported the recruitment of Jasper Hale into Maria's ranks. Number 46. Victoria. Victoria is definitely a face that we're all familiar with, and some of you may wonder why she's not higher up on this list. Well, I'll tell you why. She was predictable and fueled by revenge, which led her to make several big errors during her pursuit of the Cullens. The only reason she was left alive and allowed to do her bidding was because Arrow wanted the Cullens dead so he could finally have Alice. Victoria was originally a human that was hunted by James and managed to evade him for a very long time. So impressed by her evasion, he decided to turn her and make her his mate. Number 45. Riley Beers. Initially having substantial strength as a newborn, Riley was turned against his will by Victoria before being manipulated by her to start a war with the Cullens. She instructed him to create an army of vampires under the false pretenses that she loved him and they could finally be together after Edward and Bella's deaths. His aggression led to overconfidence and arrogance when it came to fighting, which resulted in his own death. Number 44. Corinne. Corinne is a member of the Volturi Guard. She has the power to make others feel content with their situation. Because of this power, she is frequently assigned to keep Sulpicia and Athenadora company, but she is also ordered by Arrow to keep Chelsea from leaving the coven, since her power can make others feel physically uncomfortable when they are not exposed to it for a period of time. She only appeared in the Vampire Index in the back of the Breaking Dawn novel. Number 43. Kebi. Kebi is a member of the Egyptian coven and the mate of Amun. She rarely speaks and has an obedient loyalty to Amun. This is most likely because she was once a slave and he chose her to become immortal. Despite being witnesses for the Cullens in the innocence of Renesmee, both Kebi and Amun stood away from the rest of the gathered vampires, not wanting to draw attention to them from the Volturi, who had seen the original Egyptian coven as a big threat when they destroyed it long ago, taking Dimitri into their ranks. Number 42. Heidi. Heidi is a member of the Volturi Guard. Her main responsibility in the Volturi is arranging elaborate ploys to bring human victims to Volterra. She might orchestrate a contest where the prize is an all-expenses-paid vacation to some random location, such as Hawaii or Spain, or a job position with an amazing salary. Most of the victims never hear the word Volterra and don't even know where they're being taken, especially Italy. Once a victim has met Heidi, it is difficult for them to refuse any invitation from her. Number 41. Renata. Renata is a member of the Volturi Guard. She is gifted with the supernatural talent to repel opponents and is therefore Arrow's personal bodyguard. She has shown to be exceptionally protective of her master and is visibly disturbed whenever he willingly makes himself vulnerable by saying, "Master?" as shown during the confrontation in Breaking Dawn. All of this, however, is influenced by Chelsea's power that bound her loyalty to him. Number 40. Esme Cullen. Esme is the matriarch of the Cullen family and wife of Carlisle. Her compassion for those she loves and humans rivals Carlisle's. She is a skilled fighter from training with the Cullens for decades, but does not openly display such abilities very often, nor does she want to. With Jasper and Emmett, the more hands-on vampires. She was turned into a vampire by Carlisle after she attempted to end her life over the loss of her newborn baby to lung fever. Number 39. Carmen. Carmen is a member of the Denali coven. Carmen and her mate Eleazar joined the Denali sisters after Eleazar left the Volturi. She is a vegetarian and lives a very peaceful lifestyle. Carmen was changed sometime during the 1700s, but the exact date is unknown. She eventually met Eleazar while he was still serving in the Volturi, and the two of them fell in love. They joined the Denali coven after Eleazar departed the Volturi and have closely bonded with the Denali sisters since joining. Number 38. Athenadora. Athenadora was one of the oldest vampires in existence. She met Caius when he recently fled from the Romanian coven's attack that dominated his territory, and travelled with him until they met Arrow and Marcus. Together they formed the Volturi coven. She has no special abilities, but her age alone makes her fiercely strong. Number 37. Nettie. Nettie was a member of the Mexican coven, along with Lucy and Maria, before she and Lucy were executed for betrayal. Nettie was likely a very devious and malicious character who loved power more than anything, similar to Caius. Because of her lack of self-restraint, she rarely participated in Maria's creations to her army. She and Lucy both plotted to kill Maria and Jasper in order to take over the coven, but Jasper sensed their impending betrayal due to his ability to identify emotions, and along with Maria, they executed both Nettie and Lucy together. Number 36. Hwilyn. Hwilyn is a South American vampire and the older sister of Pire. She was turned by her vampire hybrid nephew, Noel. She is the only known vampire to be ever turned by a hybrid. This happened when Noel bit her moments after being born. Over the years, she grew to love her nephew and protected him, but did not refrain from letting him know that he did cause his mother's death. She is quite powerful and very skillful. Despite being a vampire herself, she distrusts the species as a whole. Number 35. Kachiri. Kachiri is an Amazonian vampire and the apparent founder of the Amazon Coven, which includes Safrina and Senna, both turned by her. The Coven resides deep in the Amazonian rainforest, and they are known to have lived outside civilization for centuries and for not keeping up the human facade. After she was changed, she went back to her closest friends, Senna and Safrina. They've been together ever since, rarely leaving the wetlands, hunting in the habitations along the fringes. She doesn't appear in the movies or even seem to exist in them either. Number 34. Garrett. Garrett was a former nomadic vampire who lived and travelled alone for the majority of his vampire life until he met Kate and joined the Denali Coven, adopting their vegetarian lifestyle. His relentless curiosity about the unknown was developed from his quest to understand his vampire side. Garrett is described by Bella to be a surprisingly good teacher in combat, possibly from experience of his life within the Revolutionary War. He becomes Kate's first ever mate after the latter spent years refusing to settle with the man as they became too attached. Number 33. Laurent. Laurent was a dangerous, clever, and very skillful vampire. He was over 300 years old by the events of the Twilight series. Originally a nomad, he joined James's coven alongside Victoria, and the three hunted relentlessly, moving from territory to territory, refusing to clean up the trail of dead bodies left in their wake. Laurent eventually became Irina's mate, but did not take very well to the vegetarian diet. Despite his attempts to live a more seclusive life, he was lured back to his old ways by the smell of Bella's scent when he encountered her by chance and attempted to kill her before being chased and killed by the Colette shapeshifters. Number 32. Tanya. Tanya is the leader of the Denali coven. She was the first of Sasha's adoptive daughters. She was actually Sasha's biological great niece, and when Sasha yearned for companionship, she chose Tanya to join her, followed by Kate and Irina. She once had a strong interest in Edward Cullen, but he showed no interest in return, and the two remained friends. Tanya strictly adheres to the Volturi rules and laws, especially after the execution of her mother. Number 31. Amun. Amun is an Egyptian vampire and the leader of the Egyptian coven, and one of the only two survivors from the Volturi's assault during the war between their covens. Amun is a mistrustful, paranoid and outspoken vampire. He created Dimitri and worked to build his tracker powers, making him the best tracker in the world. This caused Arrow to send Chelsea and take Dimitri from him. Number 30. Maggie. Maggie is a vampire member of the Irish Coven with the gift of knowing when she is being lied to. Maggie is very righteous, headstrong, and believes in justice. Whenever someone lies to her, she will loudly point it out, even when it got her into trouble, usually with authority, both on a parental and community level, which resulted in her receiving punishments that were sometimes quite severe. This is why she feels comfortable with Siobhan and Liam, because they are always honest both to themselves and to her. Number 29. Liam. Liam is a key member of the Irish Coven. Liam is usually very quiet and very possessive of Siobhan, his mate. He can, however, be kind. While hunting, he mostly prefers to prey on Englishmen due to his history with them. He is also described as a very fierce and focused individual during a hunt, which manifested clearly when he was still a newborn. Number 28. Santiago. Santiago is a member of the Volturi Guard and one of the few members without possession of a supernatural gift. Instead, his useful skills come from his superior physical strength and battle techniques. He possesses tremendous physical strength, as I mentioned, and his combat skills surpass regular vampires. Though he is not quite as skilled as Felix, he is not to be underestimated. Number 27. Carlisle Cullen. A face we're all familiar with, Carlisle is the leader of the Olympic Coven. He changed many of the members, but it is noteworthy to mention that they were all close to death at the point of when they were turned. He has an incredible sense of passion for human life and is one of the longest practicing vegetarians in vampire existence. He also has an unrivaled restraint when around human blood due to his profession as a doctor. Number 26. Didime. Didime's story is rather tragic. She was the biological sister of Arrow and one of the oldest vampires in existence before her untimely and shocking murder. Married to Marcus, the two planned on leaving the Volturi to travel the world together before eventually returning. Arrow falsely gave his blessing to them both before having Didime killed in order to prevent Marcus leaving. Didime had the gift to make people happy, something Arrow had no real use for, so he viewed her as a necessary dispensary in order to keep his coven's core intact. Number 25. Bella Swan. For all her awkwardness, Bella is a pretty powerful vampire. She displayed what would be her supernatural ability as a human when all vampire gifts had no effect on her. Edward nor Arrow could read her mind, and Jane's gift of pain had no effect. This only amplified when she became a vampire, learning to harness her shield power and transfer it to other vampires in order to protect them too. By the events of Breaking Dawn, She had not even come close to reaching the potential of her shield gift, so I think it's correct to assume it's only gotten stronger. Number 24. Alistair. Alistair is a rather reclusive vampire, preferring to live and travel alone. He is very powerful and his tracking skills rival the best of those who share the gift. He is described as having a misanthropic and brooding personality due to his last experiences as a human that twisted him. Alistair is deeply mistrustful of all authority and counts Carlyle as his closest acquaintance. However, he can't stand to visit more than once a century. During the confrontation with the Volturi, Alistair fled instead of showing himself standing against them. Edward explains that he cares about Carlyle, but not enough to face the Volturi with him. Number 23. Senna. Senna is a member of the Amazonian coven, which resides in the South American rainforests, where most vampires never visit due to its scarce human population. Senna is described as very quiet, sticking close to Sabrina all the time. Despite not socializing with many vampires outside her circle, she likes and trusts the Cullens. She is a very powerful vampire and an incredibly skilled hunter and warrior. Number 22. Emmett Cullen. For a vegetarian, Emmett is an immensely powerful vampire, almost as strong as Felix, but not quite. Unlike some of his vampire family members, he never hesitates to speak his mind, which makes Edward very comfortable to be around him. He appears to be thoughtless, impatient, reckless, makes rash decisions, and allows his instincts to take over, but also is optimistic and never worries about things beyond his control. He's fast, agile, strong, and embraces conflict if it comes his way. Definitely a beneficial vampire to have on your side. Number 21. Siobhan. Siobhan is the leader of the Irish coven. Siobhan was quite strong as a human, and when she became a newborn, her strength and skills exceeded beyond their regular newborns. It is therefore assumed that her strength and combat skills are not to be underestimated. After stumbling across the Volturi, she became curious with gifted vampires, never knowing that she was one of them, and had always wanted to create one of her own. Once she created Maggie, who could detect lies, her curiosity was satisfied. Number 20. Maria. Maria is a pretty powerful vampire with quite an unforgiving attitude. She was the creator of Jasper. He describes her as smart and careful in expanding her territories, recruiting newborns for her army, and remaining in the dark from human population to avoid the Volturi's attention. Knowing that she cannot keep newborns after their first year was almost up, she would order Jasper to dispose of them and then recruit new ones afterwards. She is also very manipulative, able to make Jasper willingly serve her before he left her army to find a more peaceful life with Alice and the Cullen family. She eventually forgave Jasper for his betrayal. Number 19. Afton. Afton is a member of the Volturi Guard. He has the gift to make himself psychically invisible to other people. Afton's gift is to make himself mentally invisible to his pursuers. Someone who hides behind him will also be invisible. However, his power is much more limited than most of the other Volturi Guard's gifts, and any person with enough focus can easily see through his shield. He has a pretty incredible supernatural power, but appears to have yet to maximize its capability. Number 18. Caius. I know it's probably surprising to see one of the leaders of the Volturi in at number 18, but to be honest, Caius wasn't really all that powerful. He was just around when the Volturi originated, alongside Arrow and Marcus. I wouldn't be surprised if he recruited the two when creating the coven either. He doesn't have a supernatural gift and isn't a skillful fighter either, but he's over 3,000 years old, and with that comes strength. He seeks out lawbreakers at every turn and for the smallest infraction, which is why he's so invaluable to the Volturi, as he's crucial in maintaining order. Number 17. Chelsea. Chelsea is a central member of the Volturi because she has the gift to influence the emotional ties between individuals. Chelsea's main occupation is to distance the innocent emotionally from the guilty by severing the bonds that are shared. Also, when a vampire Arrow is interested in appears, she secures the ties of that vampire to the Volturi, prompting them to serve willingly. Also, though she can influence these ties, she doesn't have the power to see them. This is supported by Marcus's ability to read emotional bonds between people and the fact that Arrow does not surround himself with second best gifts. If she could see them in the first place, he would not have needed to keep Marcus in the coven. Her power is also the main reason Caius had not attempted to overthrow Arrow. Number 16. Eleazar. Eleazar is a member of the Denali coven. He was originally a guard of the Volturi due to his ability to sense the abilities of other vampires and humans until he and Carmen joined the Denali coven many years after it was established. Eleazar had a strong belief that laws must be upheld for the balance and safety of the vampire world, which is part of the reason he joined the Volturi, though he wasn't completely happy with their lifestyle. He is described by Edward Cullen as a very gentle man with purely good intentions and a very compassionate heart. He becomes distraught and disappointed when he figures out the Volturi's true face, the desire to control instead of maintaining order, the latter being what he had always believed they were truly doing. Number 15. Kate. Kate, real name Katrina, is one of the original members of the Denali coven and believed to be at least over 500 years old. She, along with Irina and Tanya, sparked the legend of the succubus, beautiful women who lured men to their company only to kill them after feeding on them. Kate can generate an electrical current in her body. Upon physical contact and depending on the power behind it, a target may feel just a static shock or be stunned as if touched by a cattle prod at full charge. But as she practiced over the centuries, she learned to run the current over her entire body, which comes in handy in self-defense. Number 14. Saphirina. Saphirina is a member of the Amazonian coven and has one of the most powerful and beneficial offensive supernatural gifts in vampire existence. She is capable of projecting powerful illusions into others' minds. The visions she projects can seem so real to the person impacted by them that they can easily believe it is real. Also, she can make her targets see nothing at all. Such illusions can be used offensively to blind or confuse enemies. Number 13. James. Although he only made it through one book, James is one of the most powerful vampires from the Twilight universe. His tracking skills are only second to Dimitri's. James hunts only for sport. He loves to chase more than to kill and has been actively tracking humans since he first became a vampire. He actually targeted Alice when she was a human, which resulted in Alice being turned into a vampire as a result, in order to throw James off her scent to protect her. It took 3 vampires to kill him in the first Twilight book. Number 12. Jasper Hale. Jasper Hale is one of the few surviving vampires of the Southern Vampire Wars who later joined the Olympic Coven. He can sometimes pass as cold because he has a very militaristic mindset from his time as a human and later as a vampire in Maria's army. However, he is actually a very kind, gentle and polite person. He's the best and most skilled fighter out of the Cullens. The only way Edward ever gets an upper hand during their sparring sessions is due to his mind-reading ability. Jasper can sense and change the emotions of others as a vampire, though he must be careful not to constantly manipulate those around him so as to not create a false reality. Although his power is quite useful, the mood he inflicts only lasts for as long as his targets are within his range. Number 11. Dimitri. Dimitri is a member of the Volturi Guard with the ability to track people through the tenors of their minds. Since no one has been able to conceal themselves from his sensing, he is a huge threat to those who wish to avoid the Volturi's attacks. He was transformed by the Egyptian coven's leader Amun. They were very close at the time and worked together to develop his tracking power. Dimitri is able to catch the tenor or flavor of a person's thought from anyone he has met in the past and uses it to follow his targets until he finds them. No matter where his targets escape to, he can find them anywhere. There is no tracker in existence like him. Number 10. Marcus. One of the 3 leaders of the Volturi, Marcus has the ability to sense the emotional ties between people, which made him very useful to Arrow. Initially thriving in the Volturi, after founding the coven with Arrow and Caius, Marcus lost all drive and desire to continue being a vampire after the death of his wife Didime, who was murdered conveniently before she and Marcus were set to depart the Volturi. One of the oldest vampires in existence, Marcus only remains with the Volturi due to Chelsea's gift of enforcing loyalty. Number 9. Felix. Probably the most physically gifted and powerful vampire in existence, Felix doesn't have a supernatural power, but most feel that his sheer, unmatched physical strength and speed could be a supernatural power within itself. He is the Volturi's enforcer and disposes of the vampires that have broken laws. Not even Edward with his mind-reading gift allowed him to predict Felix's next move, as he was that strong. This vampire is truly a monster and is one of the Volturi's most valuable assets. Number 8. Alec. One of the vampire twins alongside his sister Jane, Alec is someone with a very powerful offensive gift. He can dull all 5 senses with the black mist he emits from his hands, which makes him invaluable on the battlefield and to the Volturi. Alongside his sister, Alec, as offensive as he is heavily protected by the Volturi. He was changed by Arrow himself when he was no older than 13. Number 7. Stefan. One of the oldest and most powerful vampires in existence, and once part of the dominating and ruling Romanian coven, Stefan is a fierce warrior that relishes battle. He was in a position of power for centuries until the Volturi grew in numbers, identified the Romanian coven's threat, and wiped them all out completely, leaving only Stefan and Vladimir alive due to the fact they were at another location at the time. To this day, he waits for the perfect moment and enough vampires who would be willing to launch an attack in Volterra. Number 6. Vladimir. Vladimir, like his Romanian coven brother Stefan, is also over 3,000 years old and ruled over the vampire world with the Romanian coven. He seems to be a lot more bitter about the Volturi's destruction of his coven and, like Stefan, waits for the perfect moment to finally take revenge. He is one of the fastest vampires in existence. and he loves to fight. During the confrontation between the Cullens and the Volturi, he was hoping for it to escalate into a battle and wasn't even invited to bear witness to Renesmee's innocence, simply wanting the chance to kill Volturi members in vengeance for the loss he suffered. Number 5. Edward Cullen. Edward Cullen is most definitely a face we're all familiar with, but he definitely deserves his place on this list at number 5. The adopted son of Carlisle Cullen, he can read minds at a distance without touch, is the fastest vampire in his coven, and his actual ability to read minds allows him to predict what and where an opponent will strike during a fight. This is what makes Edward so powerful. Number 4. Alice. One of the most gifted vampires in existence, Alice is known as the most agile vampire in the family, supported with her precognitive powers. Despite her small stature, she is a very capable fighter. She uses a very agile and somewhat artistic style of combat, performing leaps and jumps around and over her opponents, distracting them and then easily defeating them. Alice has the power to see into the future. The premonitions she experienced as a human were intensified when she became a vampire, and she uses them to her advantage in order to keep her family safe. Number 3. Jane. What can I say about Jane? Only that she is absolutely lethal. Her supernatural gift of inflicting pain on anyone she chooses, without touch I must add, is in my opinion the most powerful offensive gift from any vampire in existence. She was single-handedly responsible for slaughtering the majority of the Romanian coven alongside Alec, and is completely indispensable to Arrow and the Volturi. Jane can expand her pain offense to multiple vampires at once, something they actually don't show in the movies. it's always a single individual encounter. Nevertheless, she is one of Stephenie Meyer's most innovating creations. Number 2. Arrow. The most politically powerful vampire in the world, Arrow is one of the most interesting vampires from the books due to the fascination around how his mind works. His goal is to rule the vampire world with an iron fist, ensuring no laws were broken and severe punishment enforced if they were. He used law-breaking to his advantage in order to handpick the most supernaturally gifted vampires from law-breaking covens. A lot of the time, these covens would have not done anything wrong until something conveniently comes to light about them. Arrow had the gift to read every single thought a person has ever had just by touch. He could peer into a person's past and detect or choose what memory he wanted to view, or read what the person was currently thinking. He's also a very powerful and skillful fighter. Number 1. Benjamin. Some of you may not agree with me on number 1, but for me it's none other than Benjamin, the hidden gem. This individual is the only known vampire in existence to be able to manipulate and control the 4 elements. He can bend water to its will, expand and project fire across hundreds of miles before retracting it. He can create vast gusts of wind and combine it with water to literally cast a hurricane right around you, or even combine all 4 elements together in a devastating attack on groups of vampires if he wished. The potential of his powers are limitless and mouth-watering to Arrow at the prospect of having him one day join the Volturi. Even though he turned down Arrow's initial offer, I've no doubt that the Volturi leader will be back again one day to entice him. So guys, it's no secret that Benjamin turned down Arrow's offer to join the Volturi. But did you know 7 other vampires also turned Arrow down? So click the video here to find out who those vampires were.